may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay guys, what we are going to be doing in this video is the exact opposite of what we did yesterday. So yesterday we looked at the top lineups in baseball with overall runs scored and went, okay, are these teams going to be able to maintain this? Are they going to be able to regress? What are we going to see? Here, we're going to go to the other end of the spectrum. We are going to be looking at the worst teams in baseball, the worst lineups, and with how many runs they have scored. And then we're going to try to say, is there any room for improvement here? Should we be expecting some of these fantasy baseball players to possibly step it up over the next month because they've had pretty rough starts to 2021? Now, of course, before we get into the video, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. But more importantly, what I need y'all to do is go down to the comment section, go to the description of the video, whatever it is, and make sure you are joining our fantasy baseball group chat, because they're completely free, trying to get as many people in there as possible. That way, if you have any start sit questions, if you have any waiver wire questions, you can easily and quickly get them answered there. So the more people that join, the better that group chat is going to be overall. But anyway, let's dive into it. And our first team here is going to be the New York Mets. And I want to give a quick background on why it's actually very important to be looking at the overall runs scored by these lineups. And that's, you want lineups that are going to be able to generate runs. You want players in those lineups, because what you're going to see is you're going to be able to see them actually get through the lineup more times per game. So your player's going to get more at-bats. And also, if you're playing in a lineup that has good hitters around you, it helps you out so much, because when you go up to the plate, like we've said before, you're more likely to have runners on base, runners in scoring position, or you can generate RBIs. And if you are actually getting on base yourself, you're more likely to have hitters after you in the lineup that can drive you home so you can score those runs yourself. So please, guys, understand the importance of having players in lineups that are going to have elite production. It makes all the difference in the world. This is why you see players on the Dodgers. I mean, if they are in the Dodgers lineup, they're going to be valuable. They're going to have a decent shot at some RBIs and some runs. But anyway, with this Mets team, right now they are last in runs with only 37. But I need to point out a few things here. Obviously, the Mets have had some canceled games. The Mets have only played 13 games so far this season. So while they're maybe last in runs, while maybe the overall totals don't look that great, I want to remind everyone, per game, the efficiency isn't that bad. Because you go to the batting average from this lineup, and they're actually 8th in Major League Baseball. And then you go to OPS, which is arguably way more important. They're actually 14th. So even though they are last in runs currently, A, that has something to do with how many games they played, and B, they're just slightly getting unlucky. They're just generating runs. They are generating runs at a very small mark compared to what you would expect if the OPS is that high. So with the Mets, I think that they're actually in store to regress to the mean. I think they are going to actually get better than where they currently are. And if we go through some players that you could look to buy low, the first guy I'm going to be looking at is going to be Francisco Lindor, player who got a massive extension this offseason, who was being drafted in the mid-second round of fantasy baseball drafts this year, only 27 years old. And so far in 2021, he's had a tough time. I will admit that. So in 2021, he's seen 37 at-bats. He's had a batting average of 189, an on-base percentage of 340, and the slugging is all the way down to 216. And this is also a player that had a pretty rough 2020, but like we've said so many times before, I mean, if you think these 2021 sample sizes are small, you should be saying the same thing with 2020, where with only about 200 at-bats, the batting average was down at 258, the on-base percentage was at 335, and the slugging was at 415. But what we need to be doing here is we need to be going and looking at the 2019 numbers, because 2019 is the last year that we had the full season, the last year that it was a completely regular year. And he had 600 at-bats in this season, a 284 average, a 335 on-base percentage, but more importantly, a 518 slugging and 22 stolen bases. So here with Francisco Lindor, I think that he is going to be able to regress back to what we saw in 2019. I think the overall Mets lineup should be able to generate more runs because the underlying metrics are pointing to this being an average lineup, not one of the worst in the entire major league. And another player that you could look to go after is going to be Pete Alonso, who was being drafted in the middle of the 5th round this past year, only 26 years old, playing first base. And here I understand that 2020 and 2021, they have not been kind for Pete Alonso, where in 2021, he's had 40 at-bats, a 250 average, a 311 on-base percentage, and a 450 slugging. In 2020, I mean, the numbers were equally as bad. The slugging was up at 490. But like I said, guys, he's only at 200 at-bats there. Small sample size, we understand that. Also, the COVID craziness, you didn't even know if you were going to be playing if you were a lot of these players. More importantly, though, 2019, the season that we are going to be looking at, 597 at-bats, 53 home runs. Now, that is what you want to see, a 583 slugging. So Pete Alonso is a power hitter. He's 26 years old. There's no reason to expect that power to regress at all. I'm expecting that he's going to be able to get closer to what he was in 2019. And I think this lineup's going to be better. So I'm going to be looking to buy. And now our next team, also a team that has missed some games, actually second last in runs scored so far this year. It's going to be the Washington Nationals, where through 13 games, they've only been able to accumulate 46 runs, but per game, these aren't bad numbers. And if you go and you dive into the actual efficiency of this lineup, you look like you have an above average lineup. I mean, they are second in the major in average with 267. They're ninth on base percentage with 326. They're slugging 7th. Their OPS is up at 728, and that's actually 8th. So I think in the case of the Nationals, yeah, they haven't really been able to generate runs, but per game, it's not too bad. And the underlying metrics, especially with average, especially with OPS, we know how important that OPS is for future production. So I think the Nationals players like Juan Soto, like Trey Turner, those elite guys that you were expecting to be fantastic coming into the season, if you can go out there, you can send out some offers for them, I think that would be ideal. Now, our third team on this list has played 15 games. Our third team on this list, you don't want anything to do with. This is going to be the San Francisco Giants, a team that we said you don't want anything to do with coming into the year. They've only had 49 runs so far through 15 games. And here, the numbers underneath are nasty. If you look under the hood, I mean, they are 29th in Major League with a batting average at 205. On base percentage, they're down at 25th. You actually have them 24th in slugging and 24th with OPS. So there's no real reason to be going out and valuing any of these players highly. I mean, we even go to Mike Yastrzemski, and we see that, yeah, he has also been very disappointing. He has had a 170 average, 267 on base percentage, a 377 slugging with 53 at-bats, and he was being drafted in the 10th, 11th round of fantasy baseball drafts this year. So I'm looking at him going, you know what? Yeah, he's a player that's lost value since you drafted him, but it's your fault for targeting a player that's going to be in one of the worst lineups in baseball. We made a video about this coming into the season. So if you can sell at a loss, I'm going to be doing it. I'm just going to be completely cutting ties. All right, so now let's go to the Chicago Cubs, the team that is currently last in batting average and fourth in runs scored, 51 runs scored. They have a 192 cumulative batting average right now. That is absolutely horrible. A 285 on base percentage, a 379 slugging, and a 664 OPS. So here, I mean, there's no real reason to be going out and valuing any of these players highly. And their number one player with value coming into the season is a clear sell candidate, in my opinion, with Javier Baez, who is being drafted in the middle of the 6th round at shortstop. And in 2021, I mean, yeah, his hitting statistics have been very bad. He's had a 214 average, a 267 on base percentage, a 464 slugging. But the reason I think you can actually go out there and sell him is because so far through only 56 at-bats, he's already had 5 stolen bases. And we know that teams are just starving for stolen bases in fantasy baseball, to where maybe you can go out there and you can sell him on that alone. But I don't even think the stolen bases are going to maintain. That's why I'm listing him as a sell. Because in 2020, with 222 at-bats, he was only able to grab 3 stolen bags. In 2019, he was only able to grab 11 with over 500 at-bats. So it's not like you're expecting him to get significantly faster at 28 years old. So Javier Baez is going to be our next sell candidate. Now, I think we should call the video here. I just want to reiterate, guys, these teams that aren't going to be generating runs, it's going to be very hard for you to go through and find some players that we can get excited about. It's going to be hard for you to go and find some guys that should be holding an insane amount of value. So if you're having a player on the Cubs right now that's maybe a little bit hot, having a player on the Giants that's a little bit hot, I think that you just go look to sell, and you look to probably grab a piece of the Padres, grab a piece of the Dodgers, grab a piece of the White Sox, get a player in a lineup that they're going to be able to consistently churn through. They're going to be able to generate runs. That way your guy has a better shot at scoring, your guy has a better shot at getting some RBIs in, and he should see more at-bats. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Of course, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. And yeah, that's it. I will see y'all with the video tomorrow.